Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of CNB Bazaar Buzz here on the NDTV network. I'm Cyrus Davar and here's what we have in store for you on the show today. The annual EV Expo, Maruti talks about the future, and Cleveland brings us a new motorcycle. So let's start off with electric cars because of course that's a hot topic nowadays, and EVs in general are catching up in India too. Now there's an annual EV Expo that is held in Delhi at the Pragati Maidan, and as always, as with every year, we were there to check it out, and here's our report.
Electric vehicles are gradually picking up the pace, and in the last 2 years, we have seen many new manufacturers in India keen to enter this segment. While electric four-wheelers are still an expensive proposition, both in terms of manufacturing and of course for the customer, the electric two- and three-wheeler space is quite hot, with several smaller manufacturers making their contribution. And the EV Expo, held every year in New Delhi, is where they all come to strut their stuff.
We are at the 8th Electric Vehicle Expo to cover something futuristic. Many small electric vehicle manufacturers have come up with new products which are two-wheelers and even electric buses. We are here to cover them all and tell you about it.
Since the electric vehicle segment is still in its nascent stage, the idea behind the expo is to make people aware with the know-how of electric vehicles.
The motive is just to make people aware about the electric vehicles, because this is something new concept, so people are not aware. If you ask any person who's on the road, he just says that I have listened something, newspapers and all, media I have listened, but he doesn't know. So you just want to introduce to the people what all technologies are available, from maybe from scooter to bus. Everything is displayed here.
The participation in the EV Expo has gone up exponentially since the last two editions, and along with Indian manufacturers, the EV Expo right from its first edition has seen active participation from Chinese EV manufacturers. One of the coolest tech bits that we saw at the EV Expo this year was a company called Altus Technologies that is making electrification conversion packages for older cars.
Actually, there is a rule that 10 years old a diesel vehicle need to be scrapped. So instead of scrapping, we are saying you can convert them to electric. We did a gypsy also. We just converted it into electric and off-road gypsy.
An off-road gypsy?
Yeah, because electric vehicles have more torque than a petrol vehicle. Because in a petrol vehicle, when you press the accelerator, it takes some time the fuel to reach. But electric is like you just press the switch and the power is there. So we just converted there's a club called Terran Tiger. They do off-roading. So we just converted a gypsy for them and they're very much satisfied.
Altus develops a range of electric motors from 10 kilowatts and 250 kilowatts, which can be retrofitted in various applications, starting from small hatchbacks right up to 42-seater buses. As expected though, a big chunk of the EV Expo was taken up by electric two- and three-wheelers. Tejas Green is an Indian company which is operating indigenously in the market and has products across categories. It will be launching two new electric motorcycles by mid-2019, which are due for ICAT approval. One is the Tejas Rhino, which is powered by a 72 kilowatt electric motor and can go up to 130 kilometers on a single charge of 2 hours, and also has a top speed of 80 kilometers per hour. Then there is the TG100, whose design draws inspiration from the iconic Yamaha RX100. It is powered by a 60-volt motor and has a range of 70 kilometers. It can be fully charged in 1.5 hours. Chinese electric scooter maker Okla, which has been operating in India in partnership with Pune-based Miracle 5 Private Limited, is going to launch a range of lithium-ion powered lifestyle electric scooters in the next 6 months, which will be retailed through its 80 dealership network across India. The scooters will be powered by a 72-volt electric motor and will have an impressive range of up to 180 kilometers on a full charge, which will take around 2 hours while it will take just 30 minutes for 80% charging. One of the cooler EVs on display was this military-themed all-electric trike. Called the Sniper, it is made by Goenka Electric, and although there is no plan yet to bring this military-themed three-wheeler chopper into production, it isn't a static dummy and has a 48-volt motor placed under the tank. But as is the case every year, for every great product showcased at the EV Expo, there are hundreds of substandard rebadged imports that aren't worth a second glance. While e-rickshaws might be an important part of electrification for the Indian commercial vehicles, the sheer number of badly made versions on display from various makers was truly shocking, and not in a good way. And as always, it is just the really low end of the spectrum that seems to turn up to the EV Expo. While so much has been said and done about electric cars and two-wheelers by the established brands in India, the fact that all of these brands were missing is a worrying part for the Expo, and something that we have brought up in the past too.
As we mentioned, we would definitely love to see more participation in general from the bigger automakers in India, especially those with a clear EV policy going forward. For example, people like Mahindra Electric, Maruti Suzuki, and even smaller manufacturers who have a big investment in the EV space, like buses and trucks, for example. That said, let's move on from that to a smaller two-wheeler manufacturer who's recently come to India, Cleveland, with a very interesting motorcycle, and Samir has the review.
It's the newest modern classic in the market, and it's called the Ace Deluxe from Cleveland CycleWerks, a US-based motorcycle manufacturer.
The Ace Deluxe is the very first offering from Cleveland CycleWerks, and it's a very likable motorcycle visually. Well, what really works for the design is the twin-pod instrument cluster, the flat handlebar, the 14-litre teardrop design fuel tank, and the flat seat, all of which are very retro cool to look at. In fact, as a canvas, a lot can be done with the Ace Deluxe in terms of customization and personalization. What also works is the spoked wheels and the pea-shooter exhaust and this all-black paint scheme that we have here. In fact, during a test ride today, we got a lot of second glances at the motorcycle, and we are sure it's only for the motorcycle alone.
The Cleveland Ace Deluxe has compact proportions, not too different from a 125cc motorcycle. The fit and finish is decent, but the plastic quality needs improvement, especially the switchgear.
But despite its good looks and old-school charm, there's a lot more to look out for.
A 229cc single-cylinder air-cooled engine powers the Ace Deluxe that produces 15 brake horsepower and 16 Nm of peak torque. The motor is based on the older Honda CG series engines that were sold in South America. But at slow speeds, it's not as smooth as you would expect. The engine feels jerky at low speeds and needs to be constantly revved past 2500 RPM to access the power band. It can cruise at 80 kmph in 5th gear, but the lack of top-end power makes the Ace Deluxe take a long time to cross 100 km per hour. The rider geometry on the Ace Deluxe is just about right, with the center set foot pegs and a flat and wide handlebar. The low seat height makes it accessible to riders of all sizes, and it offers a comfortable ride at least over city streets. Handling, however, can be better, and the Ace isn't too seamless in direction changes. Braking is strong and progressive, but the lack of ABS is felt and the front wheel locks up under hard braking.
The Cleveland Ace Deluxe is a motorcycle with a lot of potential. Yes, 15 bhp from a 229cc engine may be not a lot, but it's enough for city commuting. This throttle is a bit snatchy, but I think there can be a little bit of improvement there. Overall, it's a nice bike to live with, but the real problem here is not the bike itself, it's the pricing. Cleveland assembles these bikes from kits from China, and that's why these bikes attract heavy taxation, which means priced at 2,23,000 ex-showroom, it's a very expensive proposition. Well, I've been told that a price correction is in order sometime next year, and so is ABS and fuel injection. And I would really like to wait till then to see how this bike performs, because with a lot of potential, I think it can capture the market like no other.
With an introductory price tag of 1,85,000 rupees, it will be a challenge for Cleveland to get customers to walk into a dealership. What the Ace Deluxe offers is something different in the modern classic space, but it will be an uphill task for Cleveland to take an established name like Royal Enfield and Jawa in the world's biggest motorcycle market.
That definitely harks back to the older 90s and 80s motorcycles that we all sort of grew up riding, and it is a very interesting motorcycle, especially in terms of the way it looks and the sheer dimension of it. That said, let's get into a quick break now, and after the break we bring you very interesting news from Maruti Suzuki. Welcome back to CNB Bazaar Buzz. Before the break, we brought you the EV Expo and a very interesting little motorcycle from Cleveland. Now let's get a little more serious and let's talk about Maruti Suzuki and its future plans. I got to sit down with Ayukawa-san, who's the CEO of the company, and R.C. Bhargava-san, of course, who's the chairman. And we talked about the future of Maruti Suzuki in the interim next few years. So they had some very interesting things to say. Check this out. Maruti Suzuki is India's largest automaker with 50% market share and has had quite the mixed bag of a year in 2018. With a great first half with the launch of the new Swift and recently the new Ertiga, the automaker has been raking in the sales. The last few months of the year though have been a little slow for Maruti Suzuki by its own standards, even though the automaker is still selling over 1.5 lakh cars every month. So what's next for Maruti? Well, 2019 is a very important year for the automaker, not just from the point of view of a new launch, but also with its ongoing new partnership with Toyota. Thank you so much for talking to us, Ayukawa-san, as always. Let me quickly digress from asking you about sales and how the year has been, because of course it's been like a bit of a mixed bag. Let's look into the future though. Next year seems to be quite promising. And of course you've got a whole bunch of new cars coming in with the new WagonR in January, and then a whole bunch of other launches too. But let's talk about alternate technologies, alternate energy, sort of hybrid in particular. How's the sort of partnership with Toyota coming along?
I think that India is facing saving the fuel issue. That is a big issue for the whole country. And one of the government proceeding at to electric vehicle. That is the one solution. But we have to preparing a lot about one was CNG and another is the hybrid vehicle. New technology. We try to pushing at the hybrid vehicle because in order to developing the industry, component manufacturing, 50% related to engine. We have to sacrifice those people. It's how improving at fuel efficiency in the current basis, supplier. That is one of the important issue. Also, hybrid is that very much improving the fuel efficiency. That's why we try to pushing at the hybrid. Also, we are collaboration with Toyota, and Toyota had that advanced technology of hybrid very much. We are trying to cooperate with them and to try to spreading the hybrid technology in India. That could be the better for the industry. And
right now, in terms of product sharing, of course, we know that the Baleno and the Brezza is going to go to Toyota and get rebadged and remade, and Maruti Suzuki will get the Corolla. But in terms of other technology sharing, you spoke about hybrid as such. Is there anything else that you're looking out of the Toyota partnership?
I think already the parent side, Toyota and the Suzuki, are collaborating and discussing it. Those kind of fruits will become driven to India in the future. But at this moment, I am not sure the detail.
That said, the year will kick off for Maruti Suzuki with the launch of the new WagonR. The hot-selling mid-range hatchback will soon be in its third generation for India and will have a larger body and a more spacious interior. The 1-litre K10 engine is expected to continue, mated to either a manual or an AMT automatic unit, but the big changes will be in the interior with a whole new upmarket feel. Expect a touchscreen infotainment system, Apple CarPlay, rear parking camera, and the works to really reach out to that mid-range car buyer in India. And yes, there will also be a CNG version. The WagonR will of course compete with the Tata Tiago, which has been given a recent update, and of course the new Hyundai Santro. We also had a chance to sit down with R.C. Bhargava, the chairman of Maruti Suzuki, and talk to him about future launches and future changes in policy and technology that will affect Maruti Suzuki in general, starting of course with the electric WagonR that Maruti will launch in 2020.
Electric car which we have at present for 2020 is a small car, and that small car for individual use is unlikely to sell in any large volumes because of the cost factor. Even with the subsidy which one read about today, if that is there, even then it will be just too costly. It's more likely to be used by fleet customers and by shared mobility. And all of these kinds of customers will all have their own charging facilities. Right. I don't think they'll rely on public charging for their operations. So at this stage, it doesn't really make too much of a difference to us. When the other models come along for the electric vehicles, there will be two types of cases. The bigger cars. In the case of bigger cars, the charging, initial charging every day will be done at home, because the guys who own the bigger cars most likely have parking places where they can also charge the cars. So they will only need charging points for situations where they get into some kind of emergency, or they do long distance travel, or some kind of other unforeseen issue comes up. For the small car owner, the challenge still remains affordability. Assuming that affordability problems get sorted out, then you need charging points, because our survey showed that about 70% of car owners don't have the facility to charge at home. Actually, of the remaining 30%, those who have facilities don't always use that facility, or in the way of parking a car, because they use it for some other purpose. A garage in most houses is not used for a car. So those people need charging facilities. Now the question is whether the kind of infrastructure which is being planned will serve the purpose of individuals who do not have the facility of charging their cars once a day at home. That still is not clear to me.
Of course, it does sort of solve the big problem for electric cars for most, which is range anxiety. Just knowing that there is some sort of...
But you have to have the first charge somewhere. Yeah. Where is that going to happen?
Maruti Suzuki has also announced that every single car that it launches from April 2019 will meet the upcoming BS6 regulations that kick in on April 1st, 2020. There will be a more serious move towards equipping future cars with hybrid technology, real hybrids with an actual electric motor, and not the mild hybrids that some of the Maruti Suzuki cars have today. Launches for next year will include the WagonR, as we mentioned earlier, along with the long-awaited facelift of the Maruti Suzuki Baleno, maybe in February, and even a rumoured RS version of the Swift. And that's all we have time for this week on the show. As always, please remember, wear your seatbelts if you're in a car, wear that helmet if you're on a two-wheeler. Please remember, there is a lot of fog, especially around parts of North India, so do drive carefully, and we'll see you next week in the new year. That said, Happy New Year. Hope you had a really good Christmas and a great festive season. See you soon.